Okay, let's take a look at our final example, which is drawing the shape X on the screen, and we're going to look at multiple ways of doing that. Okay, so this is the output. In this example, I've got three different X's. You'll notice that there are different colors, and there are also different weights. So we've got the thick gray, we've got the medium black, and the very thin white example here. Okay, so here's the code to draw a single X, hard-coded, no variables, all hard-coded numbers. If we wanted to draw multiple X's, we could continue that process with our hard coding. So we've got additional 4 lines for the black X and another additional 4 lines of code for the white X. And this is all happening in the draw method. The problem with this is we've got a lot of duplication. So if you look at all of these, we're changing the stroke weight, the line, because we're drawing 2 of them. But that process is repeated every time. And what we want to do is try simplify that. So we're going to incrementally build a solution that uses methods to produce the same output, but more efficiently. So let's start by drawing a single X. So we'll start by saying, in our draw method, instead of writing all the lines of code to implement draw, we're going to call our new method that we're going to make up ourselves. And the name of this method is drawX. And on the right-hand side, you can see how we've implemented it. So we just call this method that takes no parameters. It returns no return value. And the hard-coded values that we had previously are just pasted in. So we just literally dragged the lines of code from the draw method and stuck them into the draw X. This is just to get started. So drawing a thick X by passing in a color as a parameter is an improvement on this. So what we're doing now is we're saying, okay, draw X now has to pass in a value that represents the color. So I'm passing in 0 into this method draw X, and I've now added a new parameter, and I've called the parameter gray for grayscale value, and it's a single integer number. So what's going to happen is that the 0 gets passed into the parameter gray, and then we can use that parameter inside our code to refer to the fact that we're using 0 on this occasion. So when we say stroke gray, what's going to happen is it's effectively going to say stroke 0. And the rest of the code is as before. But what this means is we now have a method that where we can draw the X on the screen, but we can specify its color. So let's maybe take a look at that running in processing. So we've got, let me just clean up here. So 311. Here's my example. And if I run it, we have the original drawX method, and now we have an updated drawX method that takes in a parameter called gray. So when we run it, we get this. So where is it coming from? I'm making the call here. So if I was to put in a different value here, like 255, it would allow me to draw a white X that's nice and thick. It's a grayscale value, so if I go somewhere in between, like 120, it will draw a dark gray X. So what we've done is parameterized draw X from our original, which was this, to this new version, which takes in a parameter and then uses that parameter to specify the color. Okay, so we've now got one parameter. Let's look at two parameters. This time we're going to specify the weight as well. So we've now got here our method call, and it now takes two parameters. The first one is the color, and the second one is the weight. Once those values come in, as before, the grey variable or parameter is used to specify the color. But now we're also using weight, so we can replace the hard-coded value for the stroke weight with a variable or parameter which changes every time it's called. So this allows us to use draw X to create X's that have different weights and different colors. And this example uses two parameters. Let's see that running. Here it is. So now we're specifying 0 for the color and 30 for the thickness. Let's run it. And we can see we've got a nice thick X. Let's do change the values here so you can see it. If I was to go with 120, we'll get a grey. And instead of 30, I'm going to go with 10, and that will give us a thinner X. So it's the same draw X method. It now takes two parameters, and it's now more reusable because I can just make different calls with different values to make it operate differently. And just to clarify, you can call it multiple times, and you can pass in different values. So let's try this one. So now you can see that we've originally drawn a thick grey X, and now I've got a thinner white X in the same location, effectively giving it a stroke outline. Okay, so let's continue with our process of parameterizing this. We've got two parameters, and now we're going to increase it to parameterize everything. So we're going to parameterize the X and Y position and also the size, how big it's made. So we're just doing some calculations inside here for the drawing the line to make use of the X, which is here. There's our X and also our Y, which is there, and our size, which is here. Okay, so where do those X, Y, and size come from? Well, in our call, we've just added three more parameters. So the 40 is passed in for the X, and the 30 is passed in for the Y, and the 36 is passed in for the size. So we can take a look at that in example 313. Which is here. So now we've expanded to pass in 5 different parameters: color, the thickness, the X, the Y, and the size. And here is the method that we've just gone through on screen. Let's take a look at it running. So now it's drawn my thick X at the coordinates that I've specified. So this is more useful because I can now take that, I'm going to make a copy, and I'm going to draw it. First parameter is the color. So let's draw a white as well as the black. I'm going to make this one thinner. And my X position, let's leave it at the same just to demonstrate. So the X, Y, and the size are the same. I've just drawn it less thick in a different color. So again, giving us that stroke outline. And if I was to change its X and Y position, we would get something like this. Let's go with, let's say that. So now you can see I've definitely got two X's and they're drawn in different colors and different thicknesses. And the last one is the size. So we can make the size bigger. Here we go. So you can see the white is a much bigger X than the original one. Okay, it's twice the size. Okay. So we've now got 5 different parameters for drawing this X. And I've just demonstrated that you can draw multiple X's. I just drew 2, but here's an example of drawing 3. And the advantage here is you don't have to write all the lines of code that's inside the draw X to draw a second and third and fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh X. All you need to do is to make the one call, the method call, and pass in different numbers. So as before, when we were looking at the eyes, I demonstrated that you could also use a loop. And the loop counter variable can be used and manipulated in the method call to give you different values. And that's what's going on here. And I'd encourage you to work out the value of I for each pass around the loop to identify what's happening with this example. Draw X is still exactly the same. The method is exactly the same. We're just including the call inside a for loop, as I demonstrated with the eyes previously. Okay. So that concludes our examples on methods. We've seen that methods can take no parameters. They can take as many parameters as you like. If they do take parameters, we take their values and we manipulate them in some way inside. We also saw that these examples can also be included, the calls can be included inside loops, and that allows us to do some clever stuff when it comes to drawing on screen. One other example that we could look at, and we'll look at it in a future class, is we'll give you some more examples of how to return a value. Returning a value means you're taking in something into the method, you're manipulating it in some way, and the function or method returns some new value that is usually stored in a variable. Okay, so that's it for now.